My entitled sister-in-law let her brat destroy my $3,500 work PC, so I bleached her $4,000 Prada bag on Livestream. The acrid, metallic stench of burning silicon and vaporized apple juice was still stinging my nostrils when the thick, corrosive bleach hit the Italian leather. I watched the viscous chemical liquid devour the limited edition Prada logo, ignoring the banshee-like shriek echoing from the hallway as my sister-in-law realized her entire influencer career was dissolving right in front of her perfectly contoured face. I am a 28-year-old freelance 3D animator and visual effects artist. My job requires an absurd amount of computational horsepower. I don't just type on a keyboard, I build entire digital worlds. For the past 3 weeks, I had been locked in my home studio, functioning on micronaps and lukewarm black coffee, finalizing a massive character rendering contract for an upcoming indie video game. It was the kind of project that could make or break my portfolio. We are talking high poly models, complex fluid dynamics, and heavily ray-traced lighting environments that demand perfection. To handle this workload, I didn't just buy a computer off the shelf at a big box store. I built a bespoke, liquid-cooled monolith of modern engineering. Housed inside a massive, heavy tempered glass Corsair chassis was a $3,500 investment. At the heart of it was an RTX 4090 graphics card, a piece of hardware so powerful and expensive it was practically mythical. I had spent an entire weekend meticulously bending rigid PTG tubing with a heat gun, creating a flawless, leak-proof vascular system that pumped frosted white coolant over the custom EKWB water blocks. This machine was my livelihood. It paid my mortgage. It kept the lights on. It was a tool of my trade, no different than a master carpenter's lathe or a surgeon's scalpel. Yesterday was supposed to be a day of quiet victory. The final render sequence was at 92%. The finish line was agonizingly close. To celebrate, and to pass the grueling final hours of the render time, I had set up my phone on a ring light tripod in the corner of my studio. I was hosting a live PC build showcase and rendering Q&A for my growing Twitch following. I had about 2,000 people tuned in, watching the progress bar slowly fill across my ultra-wide monitor while I answered technical questions from the chat. Unfortunately, downstairs, a completely different kind of reality was unfolding. It was the third Sunday of the month, which meant it was mandatory family dinner night at my house. My older brother, Mark, had arrived an hour earlier with his wife, Chloe, and their 6-year-old son, Leo. Calling Chloe an influencer is giving her too much credit, but it's the title she demands everyone use. She had managed to cultivate an audience of about 40,000 followers on Instagram by peddling overpriced, chalky diet supplements and exploiting every minor tantrum her child threw for engagement. She viewed the entire world through the lens of brand sponsorships, ring lights, and free promotional packages. She was chronically glued to her phone screen, entirely detached from the physical world around her. Because of this, Leo was less of a child and more of an unsupervised, walking natural disaster. Chloe firmly believed in hands-off, exploratory parenting. In her warped reality, the word no was a toxic boundary that stifled his creative energy. Over the last 2 years, Leo's creative energy had resulted in a shattered flat-screen TV, a toilet backed up with flushable wipes and Hot Wheels cars, and a massive gouge in my brother's car door. I had been streaming for about 2 hours when the gnawing ache of hunger finally forced me to leave my sanctuary. I needed calories to survive the final render push. I stood up from my ergonomic chair, told my Twitch chat I'd be right back in 5 minutes, and stepped out of the studio. Because the 4090 runs incredibly hot when rendering at full capacity, I left the heavy oak door cracked open just a few inches to let the exhaust fans pull some cooler air from the hallway. It was a fatal miscalculation. I walked downstairs into a chaotic scene. The kitchen smelled heavily of roasted lamb and garlic, but the atmosphere was suffocating. Chloe was draped over the kitchen island, furiously typing on her phone, completely ignoring the fact that Leo was currently using a serving spoon to launch mashed potatoes against the stainless steel refrigerator. Mark was sitting at the dining table, his shoulders slumped in a posture of perpetual defeat, silently chewing a dinner roll as if chewing louder might trigger a domestic incident. I quickly plated a massive pile of food, my eyes darting nervously toward the ceiling. My studio was directly above the living room. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to get back upstairs. I didn't bother trying to engage in small talk. I grabbed a fork, turned on my heel, and started taking the stairs 2 at a time. I was halfway up the wooden staircase when I heard the sound. It wasn't a loud crash. It was worse. It was a sickening, wet, mechanical fizzle. The unmistakable sound of violently short-circuiting electricity. The heat instantly rose in my neck, a fiery, suffocating wave of pure panic washing over my entire body. I dropped my plate of food right there on the carpeted landing. Ceramic shattered, gravy splattered against the baseboards, but I didn't care. I shoved the studio door wide open. My vision actually went blurry with horror. Standing on his tiptoes, leaning heavily against my reinforced glass desk, was Leo. In his sticky little hands, he was holding a massive 32-ounce plastic cup of supersized apple juice that Chloe had brought him from some fast food drive-thru. He had removed the plastic lid. I watched in agonizing, slow-motion helplessness as he tipped the massive cup forward, pouring a thick, sticky waterfall of pure, sugary liquid directly through the top exhaust mesh of my Corsair PC case. The heavy, syrupy juice cascaded down, hitting the 3 top-mounted RGB radiator fans spinning at 2,000 revolutions per minute. The fans acted like an industrial blender. They instantly atomized the liquid, violently spraying a fine mist of sticky, conductive apple juice directly across the exposed, sensitive backplate of the RTX 4090 and deep into the PCIe slots of the motherboard. There was a blinding, brilliant flash of blue light that illuminated the entire darkened studio. A sound like a gunshot, a sharp, violent pop echoed off the acoustic foam panels on the walls. Instantly, my 3 ultra-wide monitors went pitch black. The hum of the liquid cooling pump died. A thick, noxious plume of black and green smoke billowed out of the top exhaust vent, carrying the deeply toxic smell of melting plastic, scorched copper, and caramelized sugar. My render was gone. 3 weeks of 70-hour work weeks, meticulous keyframing, lighting adjustments, and client revisions vanished into the ether. My $3,500 machine was completely and utterly bricked. Leo dropped the empty plastic cup onto my hardwood floor. The loud spark had frightened him, and he immediately let out a ear-piercing, dramatic wail, squeezing his eyes shut and crying at the top of his lungs. What happened? What did you do to him? Chloe came charging up the stairs, her heavy platform heels thudding aggressively against the wood. Mark was right behind her, his face pale. Chloe shoved past me in the doorway, completely ignoring the smoking, ruined piece of technology on my desk. She dropped to her knees, aggressively scooping Leo into her arms, cooing and hushing him as if I had just struck him. My computer, I stammered, my voice trembling so violently I could barely form the syllables. I pointed a shaking finger at the chassis, where a slow trickle of brown, sticky juice was still weeping from the bottom vent onto the desk mat. He just destroyed my computer. He poured juice into the intake. Chloe didn't even look at the PC. She stood up, adjusting her designer blouse, holding Leo tightly to her hip. She shot me a look of absolute, unadulterated disgust. It's just a computer, Arthur, she scoffed, rolling her eyes as if I were a teenager throwing a tantrum over a lost save file. You are acting completely unhinged right now. You're too old for video games anyway. You need to grow up. My jaw locked. My fingernails dug crescent moons deep into the palms of my hands. That is my livelihood, I hissed, taking a slow, menacing step toward her. That is a $3,500 workstation. I just lost 3 weeks of paid client work because you refused to watch your child. He was just being an explorer, she screamed back, her shrill voice vibrating against my eardrums. He was just being curious. It's your fault for leaving the door open in a house with a child. I'm not paying a single dime for a stupid toy just because you can't be responsible with your little gadgets. She turned sharply on her heel, her hair whipping through the air, and stormed out of the studio, carrying the crying child down the hallway. Mark lingered in the doorway for exactly 3 seconds. He looked at the smoking PC, looked at me with an expression of pathetic, spineless apology, and then silently turned and followed his wife. I stood alone in the center of the room. The silence was deafening, broken only by the faint, agonizing drip of apple juice hitting the floorboards. My chest was heaving. I felt a cold, dark pit open up in my stomach. I was staring down the barrel of missing a massive client deadline, a breached contract, and the total loss of my most expensive asset. That's when the real bombshell dropped. My eyes slowly drifted away from the ruined, smoking monolith on my desk and landed on my secondary streaming setup in the corner. My phone was still securely mounted in the center of the ring light. The screen wasn't black. It was glowing brightly. My Twitch stream was being broadcast through my phone's cellular data connection, entirely independent of the home network and the destroyed PC. The camera had been positioned perfectly to capture the entire room. I walked over on numb legs and looked at the screen. 2,500 viewers were currently watching. They had seen the entire thing. The door opening, the kid climbing the desk, the juice pouring, the bright blue spark, the smoke, and, most importantly, they had recorded every single word of Chloe's shrieking, entitled dismissal in crystal clear, high-definition audio. The chat box on the side of the screen was moving so fast it was a literal blur of text. I reached out and tapped the screen to pause the chat scroll so I could actually read it. OMFG, did she just call it a toy? Sue her immediately. Bro, I am physically shaking with rage. RN. F in the chat for the 4090. Take her to small claims court. Who is this woman? Cancel her. I stared at the scrolling text, my breathing slowing down. The panic that had been suffocating me evaporated, instantly replaced by a cold, calculating, and terrifyingly sharp clarity. I didn't want to sue her in small claims court. Small claims court takes months. Small claims court is quiet. Small claims court doesn't hurt an influencer. I needed to strike where it would inflict maximum, irreversible irreversible damage. I unclipped my phone from the ring light tripod. I held it in my right hand, making sure the camera lens was clear, and flipped the view so I could see exactly what the stream was seeing. The viewer count was spiking wildly, climbing toward 3,000 as people started clipping the incident and sharing the link across Discord servers. I walked out of the studio and headed straight for the upstairs landing. When Chloe had arrived for dinner, she hadn't stopped bragging for a solid 20 minutes about the PR package she had received the day before. It was a brand new, limited edition, ultra-exclusive designer collaboration handbag. Prada paired with some high-end streetwear label. It was a massive, structured tote made of pristine, buttery soft white Italian leather, adorned with heavy, custom-milled silver hardware. She had loudly and obnoxiously informed everyone at the table that it retailed for over $4,000, and she was contractually obligated to film an unboxing and styling review with it for her sponsors first thing Monday morning. She had left it sitting right on the hallway console table, completely unguarded, treating my home like her own personal dressing room. I walked silently past the console table, keeping the camera pointed steadily at the pristine white leather bag resting under the warm glow of the hallway sconces. I didn't stop. I kept walking right past it and pushed open the door to the upstairs laundry room. The harsh fluorescent light flickered to life. I reached up to the top shelf above the washing machine. My hand wrapped around the thick plastic handle of an industrial-sized, heavy-duty jug of concentrated bleach. I pulled it down. It was heavy. It was lethal. It was absolutely perfect. I unscrewed the bright yellow childproof cap. The sharp, aggressive chemical odor immediately burned the back of my throat, cutting right through the lingering smell of vaporized computer parts. Holding the live-streaming phone steady in my left hand, and the heavy, open jug of bleach in my right, I walked back out into the hallway. Downstairs, I could hear Chloe loudly complaining to my brother. "He is so dramatic, Mark. I can't believe he yelled at Leo over a stupid computer. You need to talk to your brother about his anger issues. It's not a safe environment for a child." I stepped up to the console table. I positioned the phone so the gleaming white Prada bag was dead center in the frame. The Twitch chat was exploding with question marks and skull emojis. They knew exactly what was about to happen. They were bloodthirsty. I didn't hesitate. I didn't think about the consequences. I tilted the heavy plastic jug forward. A thick, torrential waterfall of concentrated, corrosive chemical bleach poured out of the spout. It hit the buttery soft white Italian leather with a heavy, sickening splat. I didn't just pour a little bit. I emptied half the gallon jug. The chemical flooded the intricate stitching. It pooled around the custom-milled silver hardware. The harsh liquid instantly began eating away at the protective coating of the leather, sinking deeply into the porous material. The pristine white color began to instantly warp and discolor, turning a sickly, mottled yellow-brown right before the eyes of 3,000 live viewers. The sound of the heavy liquid hitting the console table and dripping onto the hardwood floor echoed loudly down the stairwell. The talking downstairs abruptly stopped. "Arthur?" Chloe called out, her voice suddenly tight with suspicion. "What are you doing up there? What is that sound?" I didn't answer. I just kept the camera focused on the ruined designer masterpiece. Heavy, frantic footsteps hammered up the wooden stairs. Chloe rounded the corner of the landing, her face flushed with lingering annoyance. Then, her eyes dropped to the console table. She froze. The annoyance on her face completely drained away, replaced by an expression of absolute, soul-crushing horror. Her jaw literally dropped open. "My bag," she gasped, the air rushing out of her lungs. My brand deal." She lunged forward, desperately reaching out to grab the handles, but recoiled instantly when the harsh, burning fumes of the bleach hit her face. She stumbled backward, clutching her hands to her chest as if she had been physically struck. "You psychopath," she shrieked, the sound tearing violently through her vocal cords. Her face turned a dangerous shade of crimson. "What did you do? That is a $4,000 bag. I have a sponsored video shoot with that tomorrow morning. You just ruined my entire contract." Mark came jogging up the stairs behind her, stopping dead in his tracks when he saw the puddle of bleach eating into the floorboards and the ruined designer bag sitting in the center of the destruction. "Arthur, what the hell is wrong with you?" he muttered, looking entirely overwhelmed. I felt no guilt. I felt absolutely nothing but cold, clinical satisfaction. I slowly lowered the jug of bleach to the floor. I took a step forward, closing the distance between us. I raised my phone, turning the screen around so Chloe was staring directly at the Twitch interface. The viewer count was sitting at a staggering 3,200 people. The chat was a waterfall of laughing emojis, screenshots, and pure, unfiltered internet justice. Chloe's eyes darted to the screen. She saw her own horrified face reflected back in the tiny camera preview window. She saw the viewer count. The realization of what was happening hit her like a freight train. "Oh, don't worry about the bag, Chloe," I whispered, my voice dangerously calm, panning the camera slowly to capture the sheer, unadulterated panic washing over her pale face. Your sponsors might be more interested in the 5,000 clips of you being a neglectful parent that are currently being tagged with your name on TikTok. Her mouth opened and closed like a dying fish, but no sound came out. I looked directly into the camera lens, gave the chat a sharp, two-finger salute, and hit end stream. The screen went black. The silence in the hallway was heavier than a concrete vault. You didn't, Chloe breathed, her voice shaking violently. Tell me you didn't just broadcast my son. I broadcasted my studio, I corrected her, my tone devoid of any sympathy. Your son walked into frame and destroyed $3,500 worth of hardware in 3 weeks of my labor. And you, on a hot microphone in front of 3,000 people, called my livelihood a toy and refused to take accountability. The internet has it all now, Chloe. Good luck with your brand management. I turned my back on her, walked back into my smoking studio, and locked the heavy oak door behind me. I spent the next 4 hours painstakingly disassembling the water loop, pulling the hard drives to rescue whatever cache data I could, and ignoring the frantic, hysterical pounding on my door. Monday morning brought a level of digital devastation that I couldn't have predicted in my wildest dreams. The Twitch clips had migrated to TikTok, Twitter, and Reddit overnight. They went catastrophically viral. The gaming community and the PC building community united in a furious, collective rage. They didn't just watch the video, they mobilized. By 9 a.m., Chloe's Instagram comment sections were completely overwhelmed. Thousands of people were demanding she pay for the ruined PC. They were calling out her atrocious parenting. They were tagging her sponsors, linking the video, and demanding accountability. By noon, the PR nightmare reached critical mass. The fashion label that had sent her the Prada bag dropped her contract, citing a severe misalignment of core values and public image. 2 other major supplement brands she worked with quietly suspended her affiliate codes. Her micro-celebrity empire was crumbling under the weight of a targeted internet strike. While she was dealing with the collapse of her digital life, I was busy in the real world. I met with a lawyer at 1 p.m. I drafted a comprehensive letter of intent to sue my own sister-in-law for the $3,500 cost of the hardware, plus $11,500 in lost wages and breached client contract fees resulting from the destroyed render. I attached the invoice, the video evidence, and a stern warning that a formal summons would be filed by Friday if a settlement wasn't reached. I had the courier deliver it directly to Mark's office. The threat of a $15,000 lawsuit, combined with his wife crying hysterically on the living room floor about her cancelled sponsorships, finally snapped my brother out of his passive, enabling coma. Mark showed up at my house at 8 p.m. that night. He looked like he had aged 5 years in 24 hours. He didn't argue. He didn't try to defend her. He simply sat at my kitchen table, pulled out a checkbook, and wrote me a personal check from his own private savings account for exactly $15,000 to cover the rig and my lost time, begging me not to file the paperwork. He also informed me, looking entirely defeated, that he had frozen Chloe's credit cards, restricted her social media access, and formally enrolled them both in mandatory, structured parenting classes starting next week. If she refused to go, he told her he was speaking to a divorce attorney. I deposited the check the next morning. I ordered overnight shipping on a brand new motherboard, a fresh RTX 4090, and all the rigid tubing I needed to rebuild the monolith. The Prada bag is probably sitting in a dumpster somewhere, permanently stained and smelling of industrial cleaner. I successfully salvaged the hard drives, begged my client for a 3-day extension, and got the project rendered on the new machine just in time to save my contract. I nuked her designer bag, obliterated her fake internet career, and forced my brother to drain his savings to pay for his wife's entitlement. Am I the monster here, or did she get exactly what she deserved?
If you have made it this far and want to see more videos like this, then kindly subscribe and turn on notifications so you may never miss another story like this.